The truth is, the global economy sucks right now. 2024 is proving itself to be a very tough year economically, not only in the United States, but literally across the world. Well, unfortunately, every time people are in a very vulnerable state, and I can't think of anything more vulnerable than folks' finances being weaker than usual, you have a segment of the human population who decide to pounce upon the opportunity to scam people. Now, this disgusting scam that I'm going to discuss today is in relation to jobs. Yes, there are people who are stealing data under the guise of posting jobs. And so I'm going to show you how you can quickly discern whether or not that job that you found online is actually real. So make sure you pay attention to this because I'm telling you, this could be life changing for you. But before we get into that, I do want to quickly introduce myself. My name is Maria Lloyd. I am the owner of a marketing firm named Opens Clicks Cash, and I am also the author of a book titled Words Are Wealth. Now, I'm on a personal mission to help as many small business owners as possible reach their first six figures in business. If that mission resonates with you, I want to invite you to come along with me on this journey by simply liking this video, subscribing to this channel, and making sure that you hit that notification bell so that way you'll know when I post future content. So, with that being said, let's dive into a real life example of scamming. Okay, so what you're looking at is an email that I received for an email marketing specialist. And so, one thing that was very interesting to me is that I saw the name of the company, and the name of the company says Paramount Global. If you will notice next to Paramount Global, there is a name here at centennialcounseling.com. Now, the thing is, if this is supposed to be a role with with Paramount Global, why would this email address come from Centennial Counseling? That doesn't really make sense. Full disclosure, I worked in HR for several years before I really stepped into marketing. So I'm pretty familiar with how these things go. And so it's not uncommon for an HR recruiter or a manager to copy and paste from the job post and then type in a totally different font. So I looked at it, I acknowledged it, but I was like, not a deal breaker, right? And so, of course, I scrolled down, and this is where I was able to see again this. But interestingly enough, that is associated with Paramount Global, but that doesn't quite match up with the email address that we have here from the sender, which is at Centennial Counseling, right? So the first thing I did was I actually looked up Centennial Counseling and discovered that this is a real counseling firm or counseling institution or whatever the correct terminology is. So I was like, okay, that's interesting. So obviously, this is not a real job opportunity because why would this company pose as Paramount Global? It's ridiculous. The next thing that I did is I actually looked at the reply to. Now, this is where it gets very critical, and I really, really, really need you to pay attention to this. So, if you look at the reply to, and what this means, if you're new to this space or don't really understand email marketing, what happens is you can send an email from one email address. And then when someone replies to that email address, which is what this scammer is asking me to do, to reply and provide my availability for a meeting via Zoom or Skype or whatever they mention, that response is actually going to go to this email address, which is talents with an S, pool at openings-paramount.com. Now, this is very critical for a couple of reasons. The first thing is talents pool does not make sense, right? Usually when employers are recruiting, we say talent pool. So that little extra S may not mean much to most people, but I can assure you that that is a dead giveaway, because oftentimes scammers are trying to throw you off by a very small little, almost a little minuscule error. And that minuscule error is actually what separates the legitimate company or employer in this case from a scammer. So I noticed that and I was like, yeah, that is not a real thing, right? So then the next thing that I did is I copied this domain name, openings-paramount.com. And I said, okay, let's see if this is a real domain. And so I looked it up and voila. As you can see, this is not a real website, right? So let's say that for some reason I'm still not convinced. Like I still need to get some additional proof. I need to like really know because maybe by happenstance Paramount just didn't make this a real website because it's a recruitment domain, right? Like they're just using it to recruit talent. So I said, okay, we'll take it a step further. Just so you know, every single domain name by law has to be registered by or with ICANN. So I looked up the ICANN for this particular email address, and this is what it showed me. I'm sorry, not for this email address. I looked up the ICANN for this particular domain name associated with the email address. And so this is the information that I'm looking for. I want to see when was this domain name registered, okay? And so as you can see here, it says that it was created on the 7th of August, 2024. So what are the odds of Paramount, a global company that's been around for probably over 100 years? What are the odds of them creating this new domain to get candidates for their recruitment efforts? Doesn't make sense, right? But let's say that you are someone who needs absolute proof. Like you're still not sold that this, is a scam. And so what I want to do is direct you to another website that I visited to check into whether or not this is a scam. And so what you'll do here is same thing. You will copy and paste this domain name. And if you've watched some of my previous videos, I actually mentioned this website when you are seeking to find out if your domain name has been blacklisted, meaning that you're not able to send marketing emails to people's inbox. It's going to spam automatically because you've been blacklisted. So what we're going to do is we've put that domain name here in MX lookup, and the website is mxtoolbox.com. We're going to do an MX lookup, and that's not really what we need, though. What we really need is to see if this domain is blacklisted. And so to find that information, you'll simply go to blacklist check, which is the little drop down option here on the button. And now we'll click that button. So notice here, it says, we notice you are on a blacklist. Ladies and gentlemen and beautiful human beings, the odds of a global production company like Paramount being blacklisted are virtually slim to none, okay? So the fact that this domain name is on the blacklist tells me everything I need to know. And so what I'm going to do is go back to the email to further explain, well, because I'm sure you're wondering, okay, so wait a minute, Maria. I thought you said if someone is blacklisted, they can't send you an email. It's going to go straight to spam. So how did their email reach your inbox? And so in order for me to answer that question, we have to go back to my email where I will point out to you or remind you that the email address from which this communication was sent is a valid email address, right? It's at centennialcounseling.com. So somehow these scammers have gotten hold to email address, or they've gotten hold to Centennial Counseling's domain settings and have been able to create a fraudulent email scheme with a legitimate domain name, right? So that's why this actually got into my inbox, because Centennial Counseling is not blacklisted. It's a legitimate website. In fact, let's just look at it very quickly. This is legitimate, okay? This is a counseling center. So this is a legitimate company. And one thing I did not do, I did not see if the staff, if there's anyone here mentioned by the name of, but if you know, and you can just let him know. I'm just kind of skimming now. Oh, there we are. He's so very clever scheme. Actually, I think I'm going to reach out to and let him know that these scammers are using or abusing his email address and his domain name to scam people. So great. Now we know is a real person. We know that Centennial Counseling is a real business. We'll even check the domain to see if it has been blacklisted. And I can assure you it has not, because I got the email in my inbox and here we are. Again, that's how the scammers were able to get away with this, because they used a legitimate domain name that is not blacklisted. They use a legitimate email address. But when you respond to that email, because remember, I shared earlier that their prompt is for me to respond with my availability. So if I were to respond and let them know when I'm available, they're going to receive my email in their inbox, at which point now they can proceed with their scamming ways. But nevertheless, they could never send me an email, or they could, but if they sent me an email from any email address that's associated with openings-paramount.com, that will in fact go into my spam account, because that email address is blacklisted. Okay. So that's how they got away with it. And this is how you can track them down. I'm just going to do a very quick summary. When you get an email inviting you to interview, one of the first things that you need to do is look at the from email address and the reply to email address. Okay. Look at the from and the reply to. If they have separate domain names, that's a red flag. Now, when you look at the reply to, go ahead and take that domain name and go to ICANN lookup, put it inside of the registration data lookup tool, and see when it was registered. Let's just see when Centennial Counseling was registered. Okay, so as you can see, this was registered in 1999. This is a legitimate business. If you can recall, that other domain that we were going to reply to was created this month in August of 2024. So clearly not a real company, right? But what you want to do is you want to go to lookup.icann.org, type the domain name, look at the date that the domain was created. If it was created in the same year, it's probably a huge red flag, especially if it's the same month that you're receiving the email. It's a huge red flag. Then you want to go over to mxtoolbox.com. You want to type that same domain here. Just click that drop down option, select blacklist check, or you can just select it here at the top in the navigation and see if they're on the blacklist. And as you can see here, what we saw with the fraudulent domain, or with the scammers, is that they are in fact blacklisted, which is why they've stolen Mr. email address somehow, and they're using that to get inside the inbox. And of course, for people who are really seeking a job opportunity, of course they're going to respond to this email, right? I mean, it seemingly seems legitimate. They have all the responsibilities listed there. Everything seems very legit. But unfortunately, this is an illegitimate opportunity. It's a scam. And so this is how you can crack down on that. Please feel free to ask any questions in the comments. I really appreciate you for your time and attention. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel. And as I always say, remember that content is currency and words are wealth. I'll check back in with you again soon.
Pampa